Welcome to Streaming News Network by Claude McDaniel. News without the hype and biased reporting. Please like and subscribe.
This is Claude McDaniel with Streaming News Network. 19-year-old Kai Trump, the granddaughter of President Donald Trump, has been granted a temporary restraining order after telling a Florida court that she was being stalked and harassed by a man she fears could pose a threat to her safety. Court documents filed in Palm Beach County identify the respondent as 26-year-old Gabriel Garza Jr. According to the petition, Kai Trump alleged that the man had engaged in repeated stalking and harassment, prompting her to seek legal protection. A judge approved the temporary restraining order in April. Under the order, Garza is prohibited from stalking, cyberstalking, or engaging in any conduct that could result in physical harm. He is also barred from coming within 500 feet of Kai Trump's residence and workplace. The order extends to the University of Miami, where Trump is set to begin attending classes this fall as a member of the school's golf program. Trump, who announced her commitment to the University of Miami last year, thanked her parents, family, coaches, and supporters for helping her reach the milestone and expressed excitement about representing the Hurricanes. The temporary restraining order remains in effect as the case moves through the legal process. This is Streaming News Network. New details are emerging in a deadly security incident near the White House after investigators revealed that a gunman who was under a court-ordered stay-away restriction was still able to reach a White House security checkpoint while armed with a loaded firearm. Authorities say the suspect, identified as Best, approached the checkpoint despite legal restrictions that were intended to keep him away from the area. The situation quickly escalated into a gunfire exchange with law enforcement officers. The suspect was killed during the confrontation. A bystander caught in the incident suffered critical injuries and was rushed to a nearby hospital for treatment. Federal investigators are now examining how the armed suspect was able to get so close to the highly secured area despite the existing court order. Officials are also reviewing the events leading up to the shooting and the security response that followed. No White House personnel were reported injured, and authorities say there is no ongoing threat to the public. The investigation remains active as officials work to determine exactly how the incident unfolded. This is Streaming News Network. A federal appeals court has struck down a controversial New York gun law provision known by critics as the vampire rule, ruling that it violates the Second Amendment. The law was enacted after the United States Supreme Court overturned New York's previous concealed carry licensing system. In response, Governor Kathy Hochul signed legislation creating new restrictions on where legally permitted gun owners could carry firearms. At the center of the case was a requirement that private property owners post signs specifically allowing concealed firearms on their premises. Without such signage, carrying a firearm on private property open to the public was effectively prohibited. In a majority opinion, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled that the requirement does not align with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation and is therefore unconstitutional. The court reasoned that many property owners would likely choose not to post any signs, effectively creating a broad ban on lawful concealed carry across much of the state. Judge Stephen Menisher agreed with striking down the provision and argued that restrictions on carrying firearms in public parks should also have been invalidated, although the court ultimately upheld those restrictions. The ruling marks another significant legal challenge to New York's post-Supreme Court gun control measures and is expected to fuel ongoing debates over the limits of firearm regulations nationwide. This is Streaming News Network. Pet owners are being urged to check their freezers after a popular raw dog food manufacturer expanded a recall involving dozens of products over concerns of possible Listeria contamination. Raw Energy announced the expanded recall after testing detected Listeria monocytogenes, a potentially dangerous bacteria that can cause serious illness in both pets and humans. The recall affects multiple frozen dog food products manufactured between July of 2025 and December of 2025, as well as one batch of beef and turkey medley dated March 31, 2026. The products were sold in 2-pound and 5-pound clear plastic tubes packaged inside brown cardboard boxes and distributed through the company's website and pickup locations across several northeastern and mid-Atlantic states. Health officials warn that Listeria can spread through contaminated pet food and any surfaces that come into contact with it, including pet bowls, countertops, and kitchen utensils. Symptoms in humans may include fever, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and muscle aches. Severe infections can lead to meningitis, pregnancy complications, or even death. Pets may also become infected, sometimes without showing symptoms. Raw Energy says it has temporarily halted all dog food production while it addresses sanitation concerns and works to improve safety measures. Consumers are being advised to stop using affected products immediately and safely dispose of them. This is Streaming News Network. The police chief of New Chicago, Indiana, is facing a series of criminal charges after being arrested Friday in Ohio. Authorities say Chief Earl Mayo was taken into custody in Clark County, Ohio, during the evening hours and later booked into the county jail. According to court records filed in Lake County, Indiana, Mayo has been charged with multiple offenses, including felony theft, official misconduct, obstruction of justice, and unlawful possession of anabolic steroids. He also faces a misdemeanor theft charge. At this time, investigators have not released details regarding the allegations that led to the charges, and court documents provide only limited information about the underlying incidents. Mayo serves as the police chief of New Chicago, a small Lake County community with a population of approximately 1,900 residents. Officials have not announced whether Mayo has been suspended from his position or whether an interim police chief will be appointed while the case proceeds. The investigation remains ongoing, and additional information is expected to be released as court proceedings move forward. This is Streaming News Network. America's largest traditional grocery chain is preparing a major effort to win back customers by lowering prices on thousands of everyday products. Kroger Chief Executive Officer Greg Foran says the company is responding to growing pressure from inflation-conscious shoppers who are increasingly turning to competitors such as Walmart, Costco, Aldi, and Amazon in search of better value. Foran says Kroger plans to test broad price reductions before expanding them nationwide. Unlike temporary sales or promotions, the initiative is expected to lower prices on thousands of items throughout its stores. The company operates multiple regional grocery brands, including Harris Teeter, Ralph's, and King Soopers, and generates nearly $150 billion in annual revenue. To help fund the lower prices, Kroger says it will focus on cutting internal costs, improving efficiency, importing more products directly, and expanding its use of technology. Company leaders say those savings will be passed on to consumers. The strategy comes as Americans continue to grapple with higher living costs and increasingly shop around for bargains, often splitting purchases among multiple retailers. Kroger is also planning a significant expansion, with between 70 and 80 new stores expected to open next year, particularly in fast-growing regions such as Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas. Company executives say the goal is simple: become more affordable, attract budget-conscious shoppers, and strengthen Kroger's position in an increasingly competitive grocery market. This is Streaming News Network. New York is moving closer to banning a controversial food additive that has been linked to cancer concerns, a decision that could have a major impact on the state's iconic pizza and bagel industry. State lawmakers have approved legislation that would prohibit the use of potassium bromate, a dough-strengthening ingredient commonly found in certain flours. The measure now awaits the signature of Governor Kathy Hochul. If signed into law, businesses would have 1 year to comply with the ban. The proposal has sparked concern among bakery owners and pizza makers. Industry estimates suggest that roughly 80% of New York pizza and bagel shops use bromated flour in some form. Many operators worry that replacing the ingredient could affect texture, taste, consistency, and production costs. Supporters of the ban point to research dating back decades that linked potassium bromate to cancer in laboratory animals. Health advocates note that the additive has already been banned or restricted in many countries and is also scheduled to be prohibited in California. Opponents argue that the ingredient has been used safely for years when handled properly during the baking process and warn that the change could create challenges for small businesses. The final decision now rests with Governor Hochul, whose signature would make New York one of the latest states to restrict the controversial additive. This is Streaming News Network. A Virginia judge has dismissed all criminal charges against a former school administrator accused of failing to prevent the 2023 classroom shooting at Richneck Elementary School. Judge Rebecca Robinson ruled that prosecutors did not present sufficient evidence to prove criminal neglect under Virginia law. The dismissal was issued with prejudice, meaning the case cannot be refiled or retried. The case centered on whether a school administrator could be held criminally responsible for allegedly failing to act on warnings that a 6-year-old student may have had a firearm before the shooting. The incident left first-grade teacher Abby Zwerner seriously injured and drew national attention to school safety procedures and administrative accountability. Legal observers had closely watched the case because it tested the limits of criminal liability for school officials in situations involving student violence. While the criminal case has now come to an end, the civil litigation surrounding the shooting continues. Zwerner previously secured a $10 million civil award, and legal analysts say the judge's ruling could complicate efforts by the Newport News Public Schools and its insurers to defend against related claims. The Rich Neck Elementary shooting remains one of the most closely scrutinized school safety cases in recent Virginia history. Donald Trump Jr. and Bettina Anderson have officially tied the knot, celebrating their marriage with an intimate wedding ceremony Saturday on a private island in the Bahamas. According to reports, approximately 40 guests attended the event, including Trump Jr.'s 5 children and several members of the Trump family, among them Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, and Tiffany Trump, along with their spouses. Members of Anderson's family and a close circle of friends were also present. The couple reportedly chose a private island setting after considering other options, including the White House. Reports indicate they opted for a smaller celebration amid ongoing international tensions and a demanding schedule in Washington. President Donald Trump announced before the ceremony that he would not attend, citing official responsibilities that required him to remain in the nation's capital. The Bahamas celebration came just days after the couple legally married in Palm Beach, Florida. A larger reception involving extended family and friends is reportedly being planned for later this year. Trump Jr. and Anderson became engaged in December 2025 after dating for about a year. Anderson, a philanthropist and model, has become a familiar figure at Trump family events in Palm Beach and at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump Jr., the eldest son of President Trump, serves as an executive vice president of the Trump Organization and has 5 children from his previous marriage to Vanessa Trump. This has been a report by Claude McDaniel of Streaming News Network.
Thank you for listening to Streaming News Network videos and shorts. Please like and subscribe to our news channel.